fun challenge. And my colleague Joelle is here as well. Joelle, I don't know if you want to say hi really quick before we get started.
Hello. This is amazing. It's wonderful to see everyone. Good evening, and I'll try to uh field any questions in the chat that I can answer in addition to Maddie speaking from the floor, so to speak.
Speaking from my desk, but yes. Well, great. Well, let's go ahead and Joelle, do you have co-host ability to let people in from the waiting room?
I'm not sure
Make
I
you
do.
co-host. Okay. I
Yeah.
just made you the co-host, so if
Okay,
you can
now I
let
do.
people in
I
while
will do that.
okay. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. It's really great to see everyone. We had I won't say an overwhelming response to this call and this grant opportunity, but more a very exciting response, I would say. So we're really glad to be with you all. My name is Maddie Smith. My pronouns are they, them, and I am the Clean Energy Shepherd at Interfaith Power and Light DMV. Um, and I think it's the coolest job title around. But really, what I get to do is work with folks like you all and connect people and their congregations to clean energy resources, whether that be solar, local energy efficiency incentives. Really, I sort of do that whole gamut of more technical support for congregations. And I know there's quite a few DC and Montgomery County folks here too. I've also been working to support our congregations there that are required to comply with benchmarking and building energy performance standards law. So I know I recognize quite a few of you from that work, and I'm glad you're here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my slides. I have just some slides to share with folks. Okay. And so I know some of you on this call may be new to Interfaith Power and Light. So I just wanted to briefly, share a little bit about who we are, and be clear that, this call is we aim to do them about monthly. Whether that always happens, it remains to be seen. But we do we're calling monthly Clean Energy Shepherds calls, and we do a different topic every month. I'll send a follow-up email with links to some of the ones before, but a couple months ago we did one that was on, energy audits and walkthroughs, which of course is very relevant to what we're talking about today. And we've also done one on rooftop solar for congregations, specifically talking about power purchase agreements. So if those are things you're interested in, you can go to our YouTube channel and check those out. So IPL-DMV is a local nonprofit. Our office is in DC, but we work throughout um, DC, Maryland, and Northern Virginia. And we work with faith communities of all different faiths. And we've been organizing congregations in the region to respond to climate change for about 15 years. And so that, is everything from advocacy to the work that we're talking about today and helping, green our congregations' buildings. And let me go to my, next page. So if you're not familiar with us, some of you I know we've worked with for quite a long time. Our website is IPLDMV.org. Feel free to check us out. The other things that we won't be talking about today, but that I can help you with is, if your congregation is interested in solar, please reach out to me. I can help find proposals or see if your roof looks like a good fit. We can also help you start a congregational green team at your congregation if that is something you're looking for support in. And then we also do faith-based climate advocacy at the state level. A lot of that is in Maryland and DC, but we also have done some local level advocacy. And then, of course, we work closely with our sister organization in Virginia, Virginia Interfaith Power and Light, that runs their state level advocacy. Okay, so what we're here to talk about today is something called the Built Nonprofits Grant. And I want to be clear that this is not a grant that IPL is administering. This is a grant we heard about that the Department of Energy just opened up for applications. And we saw an opportunity to help support our congregations in applying for this grant. And there's been, this is sort of the second round of grant opportunities that's available for nonprofits through the Department of Energy sort of nonprofits office. And this specific grant, they're working with with a company called TechWorks that's actually administering the grant. And so the application is on their website. So that's why it is an official federal Department of Energy grant, but it's just on the TechWorks website because they're working with them on the grant. Anybody that is a nonprofit 501c3 organization that owns your building can apply for this. And then you can apply for up to $100,000 to fund energy efficiency and weatherization upgrades for your building. And the important thing to note here is that this is a grant, so you don't have to pay it back, but there is a 20% cost share required. So that, if you're applying for that money, you have to be prepared to show them how you're going to fund that 20% of the project that they cannot fund. And I'm happy to, answer questions on that. One thing I did just read today is that 20% cost share can't be covered by other federal funds, but it could absolutely be covered by other grants that aren't federal funds or state or local money. There's a pretty tight window on this, which is why I'm glad that we can all gather here tonight to talk about it. The applications are due Tuesday, November 12th, which is very soon. They just opened up this. They only opened up this opportunity October 1st. So it's not that we're necessarily getting to it late. It's that this window is extremely tight, and I think they mainly did that because they're anticipating will be very competitive and that a lot of folks will apply for this because, I haven't met a congregation that's like, yeah, our energy systems work perfectly and we don't need to save energy and money. Like, I haven't met anyone like that. Everybody could use these funds to do, much needed upgrades to their buildings. And so one thing I want to be clear is that, we're here to support any congregation in the DMV that applies for this, but we anticipate that the grant will be extremely competitive. They're only awarding $2 million total, and this is open to any nonprofit that owns their building across the country. So, and I don't say that to say, you shouldn't apply. I say that to just be realistic about, what's actually the funds that are actually available. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So we expect that applicants that are located in Justice 40 census tracts or who directly serve a disadvantaged community will be in the best position to receive funds. And I think the email we had sent out to everyone that many of you probably saw when you clicked to register had a link to this tool, and I've also linked it here. Joelle, maybe you can put a link in the chat. But when I say Justice 40 census tracts, that refers to this tool that the Biden administration put out. That's basically like an economic and environmental justice screening tool. And it's really cool. I highly encourage you to check it out, even if you decide not to apply for these funds or that your building is not located in one of these highlighted census tracts. It basically is a map of the entire country, and it, uh, designates census tracts as advantaged or disadvantaged. And that's just the language they use, and it screens it on a whole bunch of different criteria, such as, I think, like percentage of people that live in households where the adults don't speak very good English, percentage of um, folks in this census tract that have asthma, like there's a whole bunch of different criteria. And so this is the main screening tool that the Biden administration has been using to determine communities that should be prioritized to receive federal funding. And the Justice 40, that term refers to this idea from the Biden administration that they want to see basically 40% of the Inflation Reduction Act funds at least go to communities located in these census tracts. And it varies for everything, but that's the main gist of it. Okay, so what projects are eligible for this grant? So this is the list. I got this straight off the grant page. I also just want to be clear that I will not be evaluating these grants. I don't know the people that will be evaluating these grant applications, but this is what I've learned from watching the informational webinar they had on it, and from reading the website and my knowledge in general about congregational energy upgrades. So this is the list of projects that you can apply for money for. The great thing about this is it's not just energy efficiency like upgrades like lighting or a smart thermostat or a heat pump. Everybody always asks me about HVAC, but it also covers things like insulation and doors and windows, which can be like a pretty low, comparatively low cost way to save energy and money in your building. Um, if your congregational attic does not have insulation, that's the first place I would start. It also covers things like heat pump hot water heaters, which are extremely efficient compared to the gas versions that a lot of people have these days. It also includes kitchen appliance upgrades, such as, switching out a big industrial gas stove for an electric or induction cooktop stove in your kitchen. It also, if you need some roof repairs to go along with the insulation work, it also can cover that. What it does not cover is equipment and projects that have already been purchased, or paid for, or contractors that have already been paid. If you already have embarked on a project, you can't apply for this grant afterwards and fund your project that way. This doesn't cover solar at all. That's completely separate. If you're interested in solar, I can absolutely help in other ways, so please let me know. It doesn't cover solar hot water heater, and it doesn't cover EV chargers and associated electrical upgrades for that. And you'll notice on the previous list, it does include electrical upgrades that have to do with electrifying your building, such as putting in a heat pump or putting in an electric stove. Many times buildings do need some sort of electrical upgrades to do those things, and that is required. What's not required are the upgrades that would be needed for solar or EV chargers. Okay, so this is sort of the crux of the issue. How do we justify your chosen upgrades in your application? And this is where, we were trying to figure out, is it worth it to share this opportunity with our congregations, knowing that many of them do not have an energy audit report and haven't gotten, and won't be able to get one by the time this opportunity is due. And there's a loophole that we've discovered that I'm pretty excited about that I really want to tell you about. That being said, if you do have an energy audit in the last 5 years for your building, a report from that could absolutely be included in your application to justify what upgrades you're applying for. The same thing being a report from a walkthrough energy assessment. They really don't care how in-depth your energy audit was, whether it was, level 2 or level 3. they really just want to see some sort of report that's associated with whatever audit or walkthrough you had done. They also said, energy modeling analysis can be included. I don't know that, maybe you have a professor in your congregation that would love to do this for you. This is not something we can do for you, but they can accept that. Additionally, if you have a report from a contractor or a bid or somebody who's been out to your building to take a look and can, say like, wow, you really need these upgrades, that is also important. I'm imagining that most of you do not have these things. And so what we want to do is to help you generate a report through a Department of Energy tool called Better. And what this has been billed to us as is like a self-audit tool that basically, it can compare your building to other buildings and give you based on your energy usage and how much it relates to the weather in your location, then it can let what it will literally spit out recommendations for energy upgrades. And so to go more in depth on that, so you don't have an energy audit, you're going to need a better report to accompany your application. So when we first started digging into this last week, I very quickly realized that the Better tool does not support the building type of worship facility, which is a big problem. Right now, it only supports a certain number of different building types. But luckily, we were able to get in touch with the right person at the Department of Energy, and they are making a quick fix in order to allow congregations to be able to use this tool to be able to generate a better report so that they can use that to apply for this built grant that's due November 12th. They told me that this fix should be made by Friday, November 1st. So this week I checked today. It's not fixed yet, but it will be. And I, have the contact information for the right people. I will say that this Better tool, um, it can do two different things. It can, you can plug in one building, enter the data for one building, your like building size, your energy usage from the last year, and it can compare you to a set of data, reference data that it already has. That will not be available for houses of worship for quite a while. What they are enabling is the analysis of a portfolio of houses of worship that I could all upload together, and it will generate the reports based off of comparison to all of the different buildings in this group. And so that is the fix that they're working on, and that I'm, prepared to help congregations with. In order to do this, I will need buildings that want to apply for this grant and don't already have an energy audit or one of the, other documents or reports that I talked about. You will need to create an account in Energy Star Portfolio Manager, which is a completely separate tool from Better. In my mind, they should be integrated, and they're not, because one is EPA and one is Department of Energy, and things are siloed in the federal government, which is kind of funny. And I can help with this. For some folks in DC, I already have all of your portfolio manager account data and information because we've been working together on benchmarking in DC. But for folks who are not already required to do this by law, you'll need to create an account, create your building within your account, and upload the last 12 months of energy usage data for your building. And that includes, all gas meters, all electric meters. If you use heating oil or some other type of way to heat your building, like all of that needs to be included. And what's also important is that you enter accurate building use information when you create your building, including the square footage. Because if the square footage is not as accurate as it can be, your Better report is not going to accurately represent, that what the snapshot of energy in your building actually looks like. and I can help with all of this. Some folks will be fine figuring it out yourself. If you already have solar on your building, it's a little more complicated, and so I recommend emailing me for sure. If you're really struggling trying to figure this out, you can just send me the last 12 months of your energy bills and um, information on, this square footage to the best of your knowledge. It doesn't have to be like, an architect just went out and measured, this is exactly the square footage of our building, but it needs to be pretty darn accurate. And I can help with that. And I don't have capacity to do that for everyone, but I'm willing to help folks that need it. Particularly if when you're located in DC, Maryland, or Northern Virginia.
Um, Maddie, we're getting questions about the meters. It's gas, electric, and water, right? Every meter?
We don't need water for
Oh,
this, no.
that's not water. Okay, I'm wrong.
DC needs water, but you don't need water for
For
this.
this. Okay, I got
But
confused.
if you have a like super old like heating oil, boiler system in your congregation, that would be need to be added. For most folks these days, it's mostly just gas and electricity and solar. If you have it, that's a whole nother super fun thing that I should help you with. But yeah, water for this we don't need. DC law requires you to enter water if you're in
Okay.
DC and covered by
Okay.
the law, but not
Sorry.
for this.
And would it be okay for me to share the video we made for DC congregations to do Energy Star Portfolio Manager?
Yeah, and some of it won't be as relevant, but a lot of it will be, which is good. And we can send that in the follow-up email. And if you're really struggling with Portfolio Manager, it's not the easiest thing to navigate. I don't think very few of you are probably building energy professionals. Most congregations don't have a building energy professional as, on their board of trustees or on staff. And so that's where I really want to help folks and be of service to you. And so if this is really a struggle, please let me help. And we will get your data entered accurately and we will do it in time to generate this report for you so that you can apply for this grant. And this some of my slides have a lot of words, which I know you're not supposed to do, but I will send these out to everyone afterwards so that you can see. And so luckily, even though Better and Portfolio Manager are separate, and they really shouldn't be, in my mind, but what I can do is download my entire portfolio from Portfolio Manager and upload it to Better. So and Portfolio Manager is really the industry standard for measuring your, how energy efficient your building is. Like that's what all the local jurisdictions are using when this is required. Big companies are using this to measure their, energy across all of their properties. And so that's why I'm asking folks to first do this in Portfolio Manager. So then it will be easy for me to upload everything together. And the reason I need to be able to help you do this is, like I said, you can't just upload your building to Better once they make the fix by yourself. You have to have a portfolio of 30 plus buildings for it to be able to analyze any of those buildings. And so that's why, we're going to do this together as a group. I already have access to a lot of buildings data from our DC work. So I'm not worried about hitting that 30, that number of 30 congregations. But of course, the more buildings that we add into that portfolio, the better the data analysis is going to be. Okay, and I just want to say that I have not actually pulled a Better report yet because like I said, we're making DOE fix it for us. But my understanding of how the tool is supposed to work, and this quote I took directly from um the grant application page, is Better as a tool to quickly and easily identify the most cost-saving energy efficiency measures in buildings and portfolios using readily available building and energy data. So we don't know what the reports are going to say for everyone until we pull them. But like in order to do that, we need to have everyone's data already entered and we need to have a group of folks to do that with. And will facilitate that and send everyone their report and help folks enter their data ahead of time if they need that. Okay, so what does the application entail? Because the documentation justifying what upgrades you're applying for is just, part of the application. And so again, I'm not the one that will be evaluating these. This is just what I've learned from their website and watching their informational webinar. If folks want to watch that, I'd encourage you to do so. I've, pulled most of what I'm sharing today is from that webinar, and what I learned from, what they've shared. So I'm just going to go through a couple pages of what the actual application looks like because they're trying to make it accessible. They're trying to make it equitable, and that's why they're, including you're able to do a better report instead of needing to pay for a super expensive energy audit, of which, most of our congregations do not have, just money laying around to be able to do that. It often has to be budgeted, ahead of time. Um, and so, the application is fairly straightforward and is not crazy lengthy for, having to try to complete it by November 12th, which is also one of the reasons we wanted to share this opportunity with our congregations. We think it will be competitive, but what you have to actually do to apply for it, like we think we can do that with you all. And like if you all are committed to meeting that deadline, like we can do this and help you get it across the finish line. So, here's some basic questions. I have questions about this women-owned, minority-owned stuff and whether that applies to religious institutions. Um, and so that's a question I'm going to get the answer to for you all. It asks, are you located in or do you serve a Justice 40 disadvantaged community? That's the link to the map that Joelle put in the chat. It asks you, what upgrades are you applying for? This is the list. And I'll send these slides out too, and you can download the PDF of what the actual application questions are yourself from the grant page on the TechWorks website. And it wants to know, what are your estimated annual energy savings anticipated from the, requested improvements. And most of that should come from the better report that will generate for folks. And if it doesn't get that specific, then I have some other ideas for how we can do that for everyone. It also asks, like, how do you plan to measure and verify the savings? Everyone that applies for this should say that you're going to measure and verify it using Energy Star Portfolio Manager, and I can always help you with that moving forward. They want to ask how you're going to do the 20% cost share. Estimated the good thing about this is you don't have to um, have exact bids for your proposed project, which is good because that's another way that they're trying to make this application process a bit more equitable, especially given the tight timeline for folks that, maybe haven't had contractors out to give them a bid for this project because they, didn't know how they would pay for it. And so, you don't have to have an actual bid, but you should have an idea of how much these things are going to cost. And we can also use our network if we're really struggling to figure out, what a ballpark estimate for what your proposed project would cost. They really only want like a project narrative of about 300 words for who's going to work on this, what's your timeline, how are you going to get it done. They want to ask about your need and community benefits. Because this will be so competitive, we anticipate that folks that can show, that their project will save them a lot of money in the long term, and then that can articulate how you will plug that money back into your mission and serving your community, that I think are going to be applications that are more likely to get funded. And they just want you to upload some documentation, most of which we've talked about. And then this is what they have on the website for how will the applications be evaluated. So the first criterion, energy related impacts, they want to see that your proposed upgrades will save you energy and money. And that, I anticipate that projects that are only going to save you, a little bit of energy and money that are really expensive, probably will not be as likely to be funded as projects that, you know, have sort of a bigger bang for your buck, I guess. They want to know, about your organizational capacity and need. They want to know why you're applying for these funds versus just funding the project yourself. I think, for most of our congregations, that's fairly easy to answer. And then, like I said, they want to know about how these upgrades to your building are going to allow you to better serve your community. And like I said, congregations that are serving a disadvantaged community or located in a Justice 40 census tract will probably have a better shot at this because they'll be able to easily articulate, how their savings on energy bills as a result of this project will allow them to reinvest in that work and in their mission. And again, I'm not evaluating these grants applications. I would love to give you all money. I just want to help you access, this money that is going to be given away by the federal government. Okay, so how can IPL help you figure out how to apply for this grant? What I can do is support DC, Maryland, and Northern Virginia congregations in uploading their data to Portfolio Manager. I can provide more support to folks that are located in our DC, Maryland, and Northern Virginia service area. I think there might be a couple folks on here that are out of that area. But what I'm committing to do for anyone, any congregation that shares their data with me, I will include in our bigger portfolio of worship facilities that get analyzed in better, and I can generate a better report for you and send it to you. I'm also willing to support congregations in other ways with your grant application, such as, reading over a draft. I can't probably do that for every single person if you all do decide to apply. But what I can specifically help with is understanding your better report and how that translates to the questions that are asked about, what's your estimated energy savings? What's your estimated, greenhouse gas emissions reductions, like that sort of technical stuff is what I can help with. Um, but I can't write your application for you. You need to have committed folks at your congregation that can do that, that are willing to work with me on the technical side of things so that we can get, a great application submitted by November 12th. Okay, so why should you apply even though this will be competitive? And they're only giving out $2 million. Knowing that the need is going to be much greater than that. So once you start tracking your energy usage, like this is whether you do it to apply for this grant or you do it anyway because you're curious, like this can really help you get started and figure out where you can save energy and money in your building. Everybody wants to save energy and money and use that money to further your mission or your ministry in your congregations. We can also, if you apply for this grant and don't get it, we can also introduce you to other resources and incentives based on, where you're located. That's a big part of my job is connecting people to those things. And this grant is just one example. I think it would be, it's choice number one for most folks because of the amount of money you can get. But there are other things, I want to work with folks beyond this grant to help you and your congregation figure out, what to do next and where to save energy and money. And we will, of course, let folks know about future opportunities for funds. I'm hoping that there will be, oh, excuse me, there will be a lot of applications for this grant, and it will just show them the need for, more money, to find more money to be able to do this in the future too for folks. Okay, so here, and I'll, put this in the chat and share it around in an email with everyone. But please email or call me with any questions you have, or if you want to apply, please let me know if you want to apply, and when you share your portfolio manager information with me, um, you know, I'll know that you want to apply then. But anybody who's thinking about it, please let me know so I can make sure we keep track of you and stay on top of it since there is a short timeline. Okay, I think I'll go ahead and stop my screen there. And
Can
I'm
I raise up?
guessing there's probably a lot of questions.
Well, I'll raise up some of the ones I got that I wasn't sure of the answers.
Okay, amazing.
Um,
Thank you,
one
Joelle.
was, will this grant opportunity be available again next year? We have no reason to think that. It's an
We have
inflation,
no idea. No.
but it's
I'm
inflation reduction.
hoping they will find money because so many people need it, but that's me hoping.
Okay.
I have no reality to
And
base
then
that on.
there's an ongoing discussion in the chat about the specs for your building that you need to enroll in portfolio manager. And I know what is required by DC law, but that's different. So in terms of like square footage and occupancy, like if people found a reasonable estimate from their county's mapping tool or from their state taxation offices, is that probably a good enough square footage number?
Yeah. And, the best thing, and this is hard because, in DC, the issue we've been running into is that so many folks have just the estimates from the DC Office of Taxation and Revenue, and a lot of those are not accurate. But in some cases, that's the only number people have. Since this is not like what we're doing here is not required by law, it's just, we need as accurate a number as possible. I think what William said in the chat about finding it from your county's online mapping tool is also good. If you like really don't have an accurate, you know, number, I would take a big tape measure and measure as much as you can. Like I know that's going to be a thorn. And, for some of it, it might be worth it to just make sure we get the most accurate number. I think for worship facilities, they also generally want to know the seating capacity of your plenary worship space. And there's a couple other questions. I can go back and look and send out some detailed information for folks. I think they also want to know like how many industrial refrigeration units do you have, because like they'll know those pull a certain amount of energy. I think those are the main. The other things to worry about are if your building has a second use, such as host nonprofit office space, or you host a daycare or preschool, or rent space to a K through 12 school or a medical clinic. Like those are all things that change how portfolio manager will calculate how efficient your building is. So like if that's your case, email me and we'll figure it out. It's not that hard, but it is important to make sure it's accurate. Religious school. So Linda, religious school should fall under like you're talking Hebrew school, right? Yeah, that will fall under the worship facility use. If you have a preschool that operates during the week, that will need to be categorized as a second use. And it's not too hard to do, but we can work together on that. Community meetings, that falls under your worship facility use.
Mhm. What about computer use?
Oh, that's a good question, Judy. I think they do ask a question about how many computers you have in the building. Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
think
that,
so.
is relatively easy to answer for most
Mhm.
folks. So yeah, that's good.
Portfolio
Good flag.
portfolio manager does ask for a number of
Yeah.
computers.
I think, so Pastor Katie asked, does the preschool use have to count as second use if it is a ministry of the church and not a separate nonprofit? It does still have to count as a second use because it's really about how the building is being used. Because, for example, a preschool is going to use more energy than a worship facility, and it's going to use that energy in different ways. And so, like, actually, it will help you, if you can prove exactly how the space is, if you can show how the space is being used. It really just has to do with the fact that that space is being used differently. Joelle, what other questions did we have? And then I know Linda has her hand up.
I don't know that there were, unless I'm forgetting some. I'll put again in the chat that there were some resources we developed to help DC congregations get into Portfolio Manager the first time when they needed to a few years ago by DC law. You'll have to just ignore elements of that are not relevant if you're not in DC, but both the video we made together with the DC Department of the Environment, as well as a worksheet we made for preparing to enter your info might be helpful in this context. So I'm going to put both of those in the chat.
Yeah, that's great.
So, Maddie, I thought maybe Katie was getting to what I was going to get at, but we have a preschool that's run by a minority-owned women run nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they're not affiliated with their synagogue. We just rent space to them.
Do
Is
they pay their own energy bill or do you
no,
pay it?
we pay it. It's part of
You
their
pay the
rent.
energy bill. Yeah, so I think you absolutely could, I think that because like upgrades that would made would both benefit, their community and the preschool community and the synagogue as a whole, I think, because you could use the
Okay,
money for other things. Yeah.
right.
And I
And
think
one,
it'll all
oh,
be
sorry.
about how folks can articulate, because I know like all of our congregations are doing good work and serving their communities. I think for this grant, it will really be about how directly you can articulate, what your energy savings will translate into in order of benefits to the community.
Right. So the question I asked is we have an estimate from an HVAC contractor, and it's for that reason that I'm on this call because they wanted $300,000. So,
Yeah,
um,
no, that's great that you have a bid, and you can absolutely include that as part of
okay,
your application. I know a lot of folks will not have bids, but if you do have a bid, absolutely, that's great to include.
Some people asked about what is it called, match or share,
The
the
cost
20
share?
the cost share. People, sorry if my kids are being loud. Um, the, one question was about whether it could be in kind, and I also just wanted us to talk about how we could maybe help with that part if
Yes,
necessary.
so it can be in kind, is my understanding. They talked about that on the webinar. I also think like it does not have to be like your congregation writes a check for that 20% to pay the contractor. Like there are like if you want to apply for this grant but are worried about that 20%, like we commit to working with you to find that money, whether it be through another grant, a state or local program, or it could be financing through your local green bank. Like it's just the federal government just wants to be clear that they're not paying for 100% of projects, they're paying for 80% of projects. Um, so that's, and you could also, I know a lot of building projects for folks, like there are different loans available that are not through green banks, whether it be through like some Christian denominations have like a denominational loan fund. A lot of folks have that. I know, for example, for Baltimore area folks, the Pearlstone Center, and Joel, you can add more to this if I mess up, but they have green building loan fund that I think used to be just for Jewish communities, and now it's open to any Baltimore area religious institution. Um, so that's, another potential way. And usually funders love to, not be the only people that are funding your project. And so I think, receiving this federal grant and going to somebody else to get the 20%, um, is very compelling, I think will be for a lot of funders. I can't promise that we can find, that money for everyone. But like we want to ask. And I know, so Mark in the chat said, is talking about how the 2 million is, pretty small. It is. And that, not everybody that's going to apply is going to get it. We're hopeful that maybe one or two of our congregations might get funds, from applying for this. And, looking at the grant application, it's a lot better than a lot of other grant applications are, which is why we wanted to invite folks to apply. And, the first step of putting your stuff into Portfolio Manager and generating a report through Better, that can serve your congregation no matter what you decide to do. And because the first step is really measuring your energy usage and seeing where you're at. And if, you're worried about the amount of work Portfolio Manager will be, I can totally help with that. I can do it for you. I can't probably do that for every single person that's on this call, but I'm totally willing to do that for some folks. And I would just need, photocopies of 12 months of your energy bills for all of your meters. And, like I said, not everyone is going to get this grant. Most people will not get this grant. And, we really also see this as a gateway to engage you all further in thinking about energy at your building and connecting you to, different services that are available. Like, for example, Mark, you're in Montgomery County, right? So like the Montgomery County Green Bank, for example, can pay for most or, part of an energy audit for nonprofit buildings. And so, that's something we could do depending on what your Better report says. And they can also, provide financing for projects. Um, and it's just different in every jurisdiction. And so like if folks don't get the grant, like I want to continue to work with you to be able to, you know, access incentives and other financing, and other programs that are available in your area, which I've learned quite a bit about. So Prince George's County does not have a green bank, unfortunately, which is a bummer. So Melissa says, did I understand correctly that each congregation should do a portfolio manager account and then Maddie would upload that info into Better when it becomes available? Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. Again, I think Better and portfolio manager should be the same thing, but EPA and DOE don't always work together, which is funny to me, but maybe not to folks who are more familiar with the federal government inner workings. Okay, we've got a few minutes left. Are there any other questions that I can answer for folks?
Uh, Maddie,
Oh,
quick,
yeah, go ahead, Mark.
sorry. Our church has had to do portfolio manager for for quite a while now because of Montgomery County's business requirements. We just sort of I guess we're considered a small business or we're big enough that we have to do that. And every few years we have to go through a process. Won't give everybody TMI right here, but long story short, the county every so often provides us with like a pro bono consultant who helps us kind of verify the data and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Is that
Mhm.
essentially kind of what you're doing as
Yeah,
well?
so if you're already, Mark, and I, should go back and look at my Montgomery County list, but it sounds like you're already benchmarking and required to do so by law. So
Yes.
you already have an account somewhere with all that information. It may be that the
Yeah.
consultant, has most of that info. But in that case, you have less work to do and can just share it with me. And because I just really need to see the data to be able to upload it into Better. But if you're in DC and Montgomery County and are already required to do this by law, some folks with smaller buildings will not have been required to do this. But in that case, this already exists somewhere if you're in compliance with the law, and we can just use that for this. So Chris says, is minimum effort to open account, get utility bills, and get square footage entered by November 9th? I would probably do it before then. I would, try to get it done this week. Or, the very beginning of next week if you can. If you don't want to think about the election, you can do portfolio manager instead. Um, but I won't be able to start running Better reports until Friday, November 1st at the earliest. But I think, it would be a good idea to get started before then if you can. And I will say, like, people who have an idea, or like Reverend Scott said, like, we have this super old low pressure boiler system. um you know if you already have an idea of sort of where you think you would start with renovations or upgrades, that's super helpful. And this Better report can help, confirm or provide more information around what your building could need. Yeah. And there's also like Joelle said, there's the other questions that are on the application. And so I'm going to put this in the chat, but so this is I think Joelle might have already put this in the chat, but I just want to put it again, the link to the grant page. And they are also offering office hours for folks to attend to ask questions about this grant. And while you're working on your application. And so I would highly encourage folks to attend those, even if you don't have specific questions. It may be helpful to hear what other people are asking to help you make your application the best it can be. And it looks like those are October 30th at 2 p.m. Eastern and November 6th at 3 p.m. And so both of those times are before the applications are due. And, obviously keep in contact with me. You can ask me any questions you want, but there may be some things I can't answer as, not the person who will be administering or, evaluating the applications. But I'm here to support you all in applying for this. And, even though we wish there was more money available, I do think that it's still worth our congregations applying, um, especially because, learning about your energy usage patterns and how much energy your congregation is using can really open up the doorways to be able to, like, access some other incentives and experts, for your building. And Joelle found the Green Loan Fund that's administered by the Pearlstone Center that's for Baltimore area folks. And that's a good question. I don't know how they would define that exactly.
It's worth a try. It probably goes according to what the Associated Jewish
Mm.
Charities of Baltimore considers its service area, and Howard County is associated with the Associated. So, but I
Yeah,
don't think
I know Osa Shalom is in the
We're in
Prince
Prince
George's
George's
part of
County.
Laurel. Um, Laurel's an enigma in that
The
way,
greater
but
Laurel
Right.
area. So big.
Yeah, yeah.
but
It's
it may be
yes,
worth asking them about for sure, Linda.
it's worth asking. Um,
Okay, any
I'm-
last questions I can answer for
Um,
folks? And
so,
I know I talked a lot and there was a lot of details. My goal tomorrow is to upload this recording that of this session and also to send everyone my slides as well as the links that Joelle and I shared in the chat. Um, and really, the first thing folks can do is try to wrap your mind around Portfolio Manager and creating an account. And please let me know if you have questions or need help or, really would like me to, or would, like me to enter your bills for you. I can do some of that for folks. And
um,
especially if you already have solar or if you have, some of the different building uses that we talked about, please email me and I can help you with that.
Thaddeus had a question. If the congregation borrowed money to complete the items that are covered under the grant, can they still apply for the grant? Would they have to use the grant money
Mm.
to buy the services, to pay back the loans?
Yeah, so have you already like purchased equipment or signed contracts?
That question is for you, Thaddeus.
Uh, Hello, everyone. I'm sorry. I'm driving and I didn't have opportunity to chime in, but we have basically borrowed. We went out and got a loan basically to complete a lot of things that were I noticed that were part of the grant, and I only found out about this about a week ago in order to sign up. But
Mm-hmm.
we have completed, quite a few of these things, and I just had just wanted to know if we were eligible in order to apply for the grant also.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Has the work already been completed?
Um, about 75% of it has.
Okay, I think basically if you've already purchased things or signed contracts with contractors, I don't think you can't use the grant money for projects that have already been completed. If there were things that you had considered but hadn't decided to do as part of that initial work, or if there's something that hasn't been completed yet that won't be for a little while,
Right.
you could use that loan that you're getting as the 20% cost share. Um, but if, I think it could work, but you would have to finagle it, I think. But basically, they can't pay for things that have already happened.
Okay, I understand that. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Thaddeus. And Joel said in the chat, if your congregation might go solar in the future, it's also, good to start thinking about this in general, your energy usage. And I'll say, if folks are thinking about how to save money and energy, solar is also, saving money. Solar is a great way for that too. And I'm working with a lot of congregations right now to get them solar proposals. And so if that's something you're interested in, please let me know, and we can work on that together as well.
I have another question, concerning that. At our
Yeah.
facility, we have over 300 solar panels on our roof. And
Mm.
before I became active, I'm a trustee at our church. Uh, Somehow the panels were put on our church, and God bless them, all of the people that were involved with it. They're no longer with the church. But we have over 300 panels, close to 300 panels on our church, but we're not receiving any benefit from those panels whatsoever.
Hmm.
And I've gone to Pepco, Green Power, and
Yeah, they're
somehow I
probably
just
not
can't.
very helpful.
They
Yeah.
are not. They're not. I've been dealing with them for the last 6 months, and I still haven't gotten a clear, concrete answer
Mm.
from them. So I'm in the process of reaching out to the mayor's office to see if we can, get some help on that end.
Yeah, no, and which church are you with again, Thaddeus? I
Oh,
know we've
wi-
emailed before.
right. I'm with Hughes Memorial
Got it.
in
Okay.
Northeast DC. Yes, correct.
Got it. Yes. No, there's actually sort of now I sort of have a little cohort of churches that are in DC that are exactly exactly what you described, have
Mhm.
solar, don't like are not don't know how they're benefiting or whether they're benefiting. And I can absolutely help with that. The way that Pepco and and BGE is probably the same. I'm just less familiar with their bills, but the way that they show solar on your energy bill is not helpful and
Right.
like
Well,
it's very confusing.
it
Because
doesn't
they
show it
only
all on ours.
yeah, they only show it if you have excess production, which most
Mhm.
folks do not. And so you can't get all the information you need from Pepco. You also have to get it from your solar company or whoever owns the panels.
Okay.
But I can absolutely help you all with that. And we can put together my goal for the folks that I'm working with that have described the exact situation you're in is to put together like a pie chart or graph of like exactly how you're benefiting, because you can't just look at the documents and figure it out. Like they make it very difficult, which is
No
disappointing.
question.
But
No question. Thank you so much, and I'll be in touch with you.
okay, great. I'll look
Okay.
forward to figuring that out together
All right.
because it
Thank you
is
so much.
frustrating. I hear
Oh
you.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any last questions before I think maybe we'll go ahead and log off and call it. Thank you, everyone. Feel free
Thank you,
to
Maddie.
to
Thank
send
you. Very good.
you here. I'm gonna put my
Thank
email in
you.
the chat really quick before folks log off. Um, oh, except for it's not working. Well,
Maddie at
Maddie at
IPL-DMV.org.
IPLDMV.org. MADD. Oh, thanks, Joelle. Perfect. And I have everyone that registered for this session's email. So I'll, expect an email from me tomorrow or the day after, with sort of all the information we talked about. And yeah, thanks everyone. I'm excited to be working together on this.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thanks very much.
It, we may apply, Maddie. It depends on
Okay.
if
Yeah.
I can get
Keep me
the,
updated, Linda.
okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
Night.
Okay.
No, thanks, Maddie.
Thanks,
Much.
everyone. Take
Good
care.
night.
All right, God bless. We plan to apply too, Maddie.
Oh,
Sarah
great.
Streeter. Okay.
Okay. Amazing.
All right.
I'll look
Thank
for
you.
your email.
Okay.
Okay. Take care,
Bye-bye.
everyone.